Well, good afternoon. You're watching News 18 Global. I'm Ridhima Bhatnagar. Another day and another fresh bout of protests have commenced once again in France. The demonstrations have been a constant ever since the pension law passed, which had raised the retirement age from 62 to 64. While President Emmanuel Macron has maintained that these reforms are a need in order to boost the employment rates, French people aren't ready to accept this reform just yet. Protesters have time and again brought forth the context of humanitarian grounds, whereas the president has kept rejecting their labels of this being a luxury and pleasure. Recently, the French president also faced backlash during his visit to the Netherlands, where protesters attempted to disrupt his address, posing questions: where is French democracy? Meanwhile, the French police have also faced heat from people regarding their dealings with protesters. The protest organized by unions is also a call out for several abusive arrests made by the police throughout these demonstrations. So what is the way forward? We have senior journalist Francois Gauthier are joining us on the broadcast to help us understand which way is these protests headed. Is there a middle ground, if any? We appreciate you taking out the time and joining us here. These protests are not new. They've been on for a while. Both sides are very clear with their positions. This government feels this is need of the hour because they want to boost employment as far as the age group of 62 to 64 is concerned. We've also heard the French president say it's not a luxury, it's not pleasant, but it's a necessity. How do you see the defense first that is coming from the government so far?
Well, it's very sad because as a Frenchman, I love my country. I love French people. I think the French people are wonderful people. But at the same time, the protest against Mr. Macron's very right and very just move to postpone the retirement age to 64 is absolutely genuine because 62, you're still in your prime physically now with the progress of medicine and mentally also. 64 also. The French people, are taken child by the social security from the time they're born till the time they die. That means, if you are children, the state gives you money. If you are sick, the state pays for your medical bills. Yeah. When you retire, of course, the state pays for your retirement pension. So it's a bit of a spoiled nation. The French people are very spoiled, I think, because 2 more years to work is not that much in those times, especially with the Ukraine war. It's interesting what
you're saying. You're saying you love your country, but you feel these protests show a sense of being spoiled. Because I heard a lot of young people, and we spoke to a lot of these people also, and they're saying that why you're doing this to us? You're already asking us to work. Now you're asking us to work extra and for a longer period of time. Their argument is that we don't want to work our entire life. We actually want to work hard till the time our youth is with us, and then we want to enjoy our retirement. But with this extension, we'll have to work for added years. Do you think that's a logical argument that is being made?
I don't think so. I mean, living in India a greater part of the year, I see people work hard and they work late in their age, and they don't retire that early, except for bureaucrats. So I think it shows the the weakening of Europe, the weakening of the psyche of Europe, the weakness of Europe, which is in decline because, again, when you're 62, 64, 65, 66, you're still in your prime. You still have the full intellectual and physical capacity to work. So, I mean, the moment you start working, you start dying. That is my opinion. That is my motto. And I think the young are wrong because, you need to work. You need to give your nation. You need to contribute. And really, 62 is very young. Don't you think so?
Okay. I'll keep my own thoughts to myself. But I just want to understand the arguments that have come in from the government once again. Economically speaking, the comparisons that have been given is that even if you look at the other European countries, for example, what's happening in Germany or what's happening in Sweden, there the age is much higher already. Some countries already have an age of 68 and upwards as well. So why should France not follow that model? That's one. And the other is, as far as the contribution of this bill to the GDP is concerned, I'm just looking at some numbers. The reason that the government is insisting on these reforms is because they believe that this pension bill can contribute nearly 14% of the GDP. But many who are protesting against the state government are saying none of this actually has rationale in terms of the human cost. It's just a political move. Do you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And you're right. You did a very rightful comment that most of the European countries have already postponed the retirement age, particularly in Germany, which is a hard-working country. But there are two reasons, I think. One, is the French like to protest. I mean, if you're a Frenchman, you like to go down the street, you like to protest. It's in the psyche of the French. And the second thing is that, yes, the French people are spoiled. I mean, they're used to being taken care of from birth to death, and they think everything is due to them. I'm sorry to say that because I do love the French and I feel proud to be French. But Mr. Macron is right, and I hope he's not going to back out, because if he backs out, it will be a defeat for the French people and for himself.
I want to understand, what is the understanding as far as the age group of 60 to 64 is concerned? Where do they lie? Because most of the reactions that we are seeing are actually from the younger generation who do not wish to work for a longer period of time. But the government is saying, look what's going to happen to the 60 to 64-year-olds. That's going to boost employment. What is the thinking among that age group?
See, the few people I have talked to, they speak about the workers, actually, the factory workers, the farmers, those who work physically, manually. These are the people who say, "Oh, I've been working all my life hard and getting up early and finishing late, and I want to retire at 62 and enjoy life." I don't think so much the blue collar people, the bureaucrats, the business people, those who work in offices. It's the workers, and the syndicates in France, which are very powerful, like in India, are mostly worker syndicate, from the lower class of people who work either physically or in lower jobs, like being nurses or manual workers, things like that. So they're the one who are protesting. And of course, you should keep in mind that joining the protest are also all kind of antisocial elements who are taking advantage of this to break down, to burn vehicles. They burn down one of the most beautiful buildings in Bordeaux, the
Yeah.
township of Bordeaux. So there are a lot of antisocial elements who are taking advantage of this track. And they mask themselves, so we don't know who they are, but
Sure.
we have some suspicion of who they are. They're taking advantage of that. So it is more the lower caste, the lower class, which is protesting, rather than those who are office jobs, and doesn't matter so much to work 2 years more.
Lastly, before I let you go, I want to understand, where do you see this headed? Is there any middle ground available, if any?
What do you mean?
Is there any middle ground? Do you see the protests or the protesters dying down or
There's a
stepping
middle
back?
ground. I mean, I don't think there's a middle ground. I don't think there is. It's not like Mr. Macron is going to split in two and say, okay, 63 is the retirement age. This will be also a defeat, and it will not make any sense. So he's added 2 years. I thought he would make it longer, 66, 67, 66 at least. But he's added 2 years. So there is no compromise. There's no compromise. I don't think he can compromise. He cannot back out. And after his trip to China, I think he's riding on a wave and he's not going to compromise.
Okay, there is no compromise. We'll really have to see how this plays out. Francia, we appreciate you joining us here and helping us understand what this means for the French people and the politics of France as well.